Hello and welcome to my review of the Transformers Kingdom Deluxe class Airazor. Out of the second wave of Deluxe figures, Airazor has got to be the character that I was looking forward to the most, as in my opinion, we haven't up until this point got a good representation of this character by Hasbro nor Takara Tomy or even by a third party company. Airazor is also one of the only original Beast Wars characters to be introduced into the Kingdom line so far that hasn't as of yet received the Masterpiece treatment, which is yet another reason why I believe myself and many others are really looking forward to her. Now, much like we have seen from the likes of Megatron, Optimus Primal and some of the other Beast Wars characters, Airazor takes heavy inspiration from her original Beast Wars character design. However, her alternate mode is a little more realistic than what we actually got from the show, and the colour variation too is also a slight departure from her original debut, but that is nothing to take away from what is otherwise a fantastic figure. So without further ado, let's bring her in for a closer look. Starting off by taking a look here at the sculpt and paintwork, the head sculpt, much like we've seen from the likes of Megatron and Black Arachnia, is a great recreation of what we got from the original 90s show. Not to mention that it is arguably the best painted aspect of the figure in general. You can see we've got so much going on here in the variety of paint used, as well as the incredible sculpt work. I love the metallic purple that we have got here for the main faceplate. You can clearly see the eyes, nose and mouth defined. I love the attention to detail, such as the tiny little grey section on her chin, and we've also got some orange accents on the sides of the helmet, as well as this really nicely painted golden crest. As we take a look at her here from a side perspective, you can see how the helmet does take heavy inspiration from her alternate mode Falcon head, and I love the design cues of this. Of course, this here is a contributing factor from her original design, so I can't necessarily give Hasbro the full credit for this, but I love the way it looks. As we take a look here from the back, you can see that this here is just as well sculpted as the sides and of course the front. And then as we turn our attention here to the torso, we have these orange sections on the sides of her chest. We also have some really nice armor on the shoulders, which too has been sculpted to give you the impression of feathers. We of course have the Falcon head sculpt, which is placed slap bang in the center of her torso in order to evoke her original Beast Wars character model. We've got a tiny Maximal insignia there on the forearms, and let's just appreciate the color variation here. We've got a lighter shade of grey used there for the upper shoulder, a great yellow plastic used for the hinge joint at the elbow, as well as this much darker color scheme used for the forearms, and of course the hands. Airazor does come with two accessories, those being her photon blasts that we see her take Pterosaur down with when we are first introduced to the character. We also have got some nice variation here where the crutch plate is concerned. You can see the orange as well as this lighter almost golden colour scheme really do complement each other rather nicely. If I had any critiques as far as robot mode is concerned, it's that I wish they could have found a way to reverse the mushroom peg so that it was visible from the back and not the front, as if you take a look here at the back, if they were to place it that way, you literally would not have been able to see it at all. Whereas if you take a look at her from a front perspective and even here from a side perspective, it is rather unsightly in my opinion, but that too is also a minor critique from what is otherwise a great looking figure. As we turn our attention here down to the lower section, you can see we've got some nice variation here of colours, such as the grey for the thighs as well as the orange armour, and much like you would expect, her character design is very sleek and elegant. We've got some exceptional sculpt work here for the shins, and then finally I love how they've recreated the design of her feet, much like we saw in the original Beast Wars series. Flipping her around here to the back, you can see I believe they've done a commendable job in folding her wings up so that they do not protrude too much in robot mode. Of course, as you would imagine from all of the hinges, you can see there are so many different display options. You can have them fully stacked up here, which is the official configuration, or I guess you could hinge these sections here out to give you the impression that perhaps she is flying in her robot mode, which I think too is a great look, or you could extend them by disengaging this tab and lock from the back and almost wrap them around her to create what I like to think of is a shield. Really awesome, and there is just so much playability to this particular character. As far as her articulation is concerned, we get a ball joint here at the head which can look up to a great degree, which is fantastic for a character of whom can fly. It can also look down, tilt side to side, and of course rotate the full 360. We do get full 360 rotation here at the shoulders, however due to the nature of the design it is slightly restricted. We can of course hinge this section here out as well as hinge it down, although the shoulder pad is more than likely going to follow it if you do decide to hinge it down. We do get a full 360 rotation here at the bicep as well as a 90-degree bend here at the elbow, full 360 rotation here at the waist due to transformation. The crotch plate is able to hinge outwards to allow for a much greater range of motion kicking out there. We can of course kick back that far. If you move her arm out of the way, she can do the splits, full 360 rotation here just above where the knee is, as well as a well past 90-degree bend here at the knee due to the nature of the transformation. We also do get ball joints here at the feet which can pivot forwards and backwards, as well as of course rotate the full 360, and these ball joints do of course act as the ankle rocker pivot, although we don't get get a great range of motion, which once again is a minor critique for what is otherwise a fantastic looking figure and a really well articulated release in my personal opinion. Here for a Kingdom Beast Wars size comparison, we have Airazor compared next to all of the Maximals and Predacons released so far, and in my opinion I believe she scales really nicely with these characters, especially as far as the scaling between Cheetor and Rat Trap is concerned, and the scaling here certainly does match what we got from the original Beast Wars series. Here for a Masterpiece size comparison, as I know many of you were hoping to actually incorporate Airazor into your Masterpiece collection, you can see that whilst the scaling isn't awful, I personally believe that she is a little too small, especially when comparing her to the likes of Tigatron, although this figure is so good that even if they were to release a Masterpiece representation of this character down the line, I'm not entirely sure that it would be needed, as other than the colorization, this character here is pretty spot on. Turning to transformation, something which I very quickly want to cover is that much like some of the initial promo images did show, you can display her with her having this almost mutant head design. So in order to just demonstrate that, you want to remove the wings here at the back, of course just disengage this panel. We can then extend this entire section here by these double joints, flip this entire assembly around, which you'll want to do for transformation anyway, and then just compress that slightly. You won't want to compress it all the way due to the nature of the design. It will not fit in the cavity that the Falcon head did store, but there you have Airazor with this almost mutant head design, and if this is your cup of tea, then you can certainly do that. Personally, I think this looks awful and quite horrifying, but it is still a nice feature and is something rather enjoyable to do. In order to actually get down to transformation, you're going to want to remove her photon blasts, and I'll very quickly just show you these in closer detail. You can see how these do resemble arrows, and these did shoot out of her arms in order to destroy Pterosaur when she did make her debut. The sculpt and paintwork on these, in my opinion too, have come out really well, and they are a nice inclusion. We of course want to remove this one here on the opposite side. You're going to want to turn your attention here down to the lower section, rotate the feet around so that the claws are now facing the front. You're then going to want to take the lower thigh swivel, rotate this around so that the front is now facing the back. Of course, repeat the same process here on the opposite side. What we shall then proceed to do is extend the wings here, bring this back panel here out, and for robot mode these double hinges are compressed. For the Falcon mode, you're going to want to extend all of this here up and over, and of course reverse the head in all the way like this. You're going to want to take this tab here, and then this tab, and peg it into this slot, and then this slot. So just align this up appropriately, snap that securely there into place. We can then turn our attention here to the arms, rotate these, take the hands here, fold those up, and of course repeat the same process here on the opposite side. You can see how we have these tiny tabs that will slide into these slots on the sides of her torso. So just peg that in there, and of course repeat the exact same process. You'll turn your attention here to the back, take the feather towel, lift this section here up, rotate the waist so that the front is facing the back, and we're then going to want to take the hip joints, rotate these all the way up so that this tab pegs into a slot on the inner thigh. Snap that in there. We can bring the knee joint down, and of course just rotate that appropriately. Repeat the same process here on the opposite side, so just snap all of that in there securely. You're then going to want to take the hinge joints, which are here, and these are on very soft ratchet joints that you're going to want to snap that there into place. It does have 2 clicks, and of course repeat the same process here on the opposite side, so just snap that there. We can then take the wings, fully extend those, bring the shoulder pads down until they clip into place, fold out the Falcon head, bring in her photon blasts, and these here will peg onto 2 circular ports on the sides of where her thighs were, and of course repeat the exact same process here on the opposite side. And here we have Airazor fully transformed up into what is, in my opinion, an almost masterpiece worthy Falcon alt mode. They truly have done a fantastic job here with Airazor, and the reason behind why I love these Kingdom figures and why I find the Beast Wars characters in particular so enjoyable is that you could really display them in their robot modes or in their alternate modes, and you would have as much personality as you would in either mode. Of course, with your more traditional characters, when you have them in their truck modes, it's not really their defining look. However, with the Beast Wars characters, as they were seen in both alternate mode and their robot modes equally, you could really display them in whatever mode and it would still represent that character. Taking a look here at the details, you can see as far as the actual Falcon head is concerned, this here looks remarkable. As mentioned, almost masterpiece worthy in my opinion, and the reason behind why I believe Hasbro and Takara Tomy packed so much into this deluxe is because perhaps they don't even plan to actually release a masterpiece representation of this character, at least for the foreseeable future. They've also added a really nice touch such as an articulated beak, and for something which is so small, I was not expecting this at all. This too has got some fantastic detail, such as the tongue. Despite it not being painted, it is still sculpted really nicely. We've got some nice feathering detailing here on the neck, and the eye paintwork too is remarkable. I love how they have got this white section in order to give you the illusion that it is indeed reflective. We have this much lighter shade of paint in order to contrast with the rest of the head design, and then as we actually take a look at her from a bird's eye perspective, the overall sculpt work to this looks remarkable, especially where those wings are concerned. This looks beautiful, really well done. I love the weathering detail that they have applied to this. It makes it look very realistic and of course authentic. We've got the tail feather here at the back, which too looks fantastic, and then as we take a look here from the underside, I really do like how they've painted this with an almost white fade in order to once again give you a more natural and realistic look. You can also see that her robot mode feet do flip into her falcon claws, and the sculpt work for the most part on these two have come out really well. As far as her articulation is concerned, we do get a full 360 rotation here at the head, as well as a hinge joint at the neck, which can look up and down. You saw that the beak is articulated. We do get a variety of hinge joints here for the actual wings. So hinge joint here, we do get a double hinge joint here, which is mainly due to transformation, so you can really manipulate that around to your so desire. We do then get another hinge joint here, and then finally the actual tip of the wings are indeed on hinge joints, so you can hinge them back and forth, and the tail feather too is also hinged. As we take a look here towards the feet, you saw that these here are on ball joints, or if you want her to look slightly more natural when flying, you can hinge these locking mechanisms all the way out in order to create the illusion that she is indeed in flight. Now, some critiques I have here in regards to her falcon mode would be that I have found the wings to become incredibly loose rather quickly. You can see that they really are unable to actually hold their own weight, and as these here are pins, it's going to be near enough impossible to strengthen that. Initially, I believed it was only on one wing, but then after messing around with the second one, you can see how they are rather droopy, so unless you utilize some of these middle hinges, you're going to get a rather flat look for the overall wings, but once you do pose them, they look terrific. We can of course hinge these sections here up and create a look that we saw in the show when she does indeed walk around, so we can completely fold these up here and have her propped or perhaps perching over a ledge. Really well done figure, and Hasbro and Takara Tomy have once again knocked it out of the park with this particular figure. Here for a Kingdom Maximal Beast Mode size comparison, you can see that she fares really nicely with some of these other characters. To just give you a side-by-side perspective, you can see that as far as her scaling here with Rat Trap is concerned, I think this here is pretty much spot on to what we saw in the show. Of course, Airazor was predominantly seen with Rat Trap actually carrying him around, and I think the scale, if you were to replicate that here, would work really well. As far as her scaling between Cheetah is concerned, you can see that while she is slightly shorter in terms of her design, she more than makes up for it as far as her robot mode scaling is concerned. So once again, I think they've done a really well done job here. And then of course here we have her scaled next to Optimus Primal, who is of course a huge ape, and I think that the scale too between these characters works nicely. So overall, she's just a great looking figure. And so some final thoughts. Airazor is certainly an above average deluxe class, much like we have seen from some of the other Beast Wars inspired Kingdom figures. They are all really well done. Initially, I put it down to the fact that we had previously seen their masterpiece representations, so Hasbro and Takara Tomy already had the basis for basically knocking it out of the park as far as screen accuracy was concerned. However, Airazor hasn't as of yet seen a masterpiece representation, and this is her first figure in many years, and I believe they've done a stellar job. Of course, the colour variation is a little lighter than compared to what we actually got on screen. However, if the listings for the upcoming Wave 3 Netflix assortment are anything to go by, we are more than likely going to be getting this character redone in her more cartoon accurate colour scheme. I think her robot mode is pretty much flawless, really well done, especially her head sculpt. The head sculpt is beautiful, it has a great variety of paint apps, and the sculpt work is so crisp and precise. The only area of critique that I do have in regards to her robot mode is that I wish they could have found a way to flip that mushroom peg where the torso was concerned, as to me that is really the only ugly area. The transformation is really refreshing and is something that I personally have never experienced. It doesn't appear to take any design cues from some of the other Airazor figures that we have seen, and her Falcon alt mode, especially from a bird's eye perspective, looks great. Of course, from a side perspective, you can begin to see some robot mode kibble. However, that is of course just inevitable, especially with a character such as a Falcon who is incredibly slim and sleek. You're of course going to get some areas which don't look 100%, but the sculpt work for the torso, the head, the wings all look beautiful. The paint variation too is really well done, and I love love how she does indeed have an articulated beak. Overall, if you are a Beast Wars fan, then Airazor is a must-have, and at the time of this recording, she could potentially be my favourite Kingdom Deluxe that we have gotten so far. I really hope that you enjoyed this review. If you did, please do let me know down in the comment section below. Also, be sure to let me know on what you think of the figure and whether or not you will be adding her to your collection. I thank you all for watching, and until my next review, I'll see you then. Thanks for watching.